Hi viewers and welcome to the channel and welcome to another episode of the Understanding FreeCAD series. Today we're going to be looking at multi-body modelling and using subshape binders. So we're looking at creating a box that has a void in the middle, and the subshape binder will be coming in with the hinges and also with creating the lid. We're looking at creating the lid with subshape binders, and we'll be referencing the body throughout, including the hinges. We're going to be using linear patterns across here to create the hinge. So I hope you're enjoying the channel, I hope you're enjoying this series, and let's have a look at the techniques involved in creating this box. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. So I've opened up FreeCAD and we're going to start a new document. I'm going to jump over to the part design workbench. Now in here I'm going to create a new body and I'm going to create a new sketch. We're going to place it on a plane. So we're going to be looking down from the top. So I'm going to use the navigation cube over here and click on the top. So we're looking down. You can see we've got the XY plane here, and that's where I'll be actually creating the model upon. So we're looking at creating the bottom part of the box. I'm going to hit OK. And we're thrown into the sketch and we can start sketching. I'm going to use this as the center point of my sketch, of the bottom of the sketch. So we're going to start by roughing out the bottom of the box, which is just going to be a square to start with. We're going to give this some dimensions and fully lock it down to the center point. So I'm going to give this a height, so clicking on the actual length here, because it's made up of 4 individual lengths. If I deleted these points, these will actually separate out. So I deleted this point by clicking on it and hitting delete. Then these will separate. So I'm just going to bring these together with coincident constraint. So I'm going to set this height, so clicking on this line, and come up to the constraints and set fixed vertical distance. And we're going to give that something like 50 millimeters. And then we're going to set the length. So I'm going to click on this length here, the top, and set a horizontal distance in there. And we'll go for 100 millimeters in there. So 50 by 100. We can pull these out to the side and get them out of the way. Now I want to constrain this to the center. You don't have to do this. We can select a point and this point and use a coincident constraint there, and that's fully constrained there if we so desire. Hit Ctrl Z, but if you want to center it, we can just click this point, and the center point, and come up to the symmetrical constraint. So this is respect to the last point you have selected, and you can see we've got symmetrical constraints there. So you pick one point, pick the other, and pick the center point, and it will center it around there. Now if we close this, we've got a fully constrained sketch, because inside our sketch, let's come over to the model and show you the sketch. This is all green, so it's fully constrained. I'm just going to swing this around so we're in basically a front left view. We can click on the point of this cube, this navigation cube here, to get us into this view here. And that's the same with all the points around the cube. So now we've got our view. Don't have to do this, this just makes it easier when we're padding. Make sure the sketch is selected and we'll select the pad. Now this is going to be the height of the box. So we've got a length here. We're doing this in 2 halves. We're using multi-body modeling. So this is going to be 2 halves. So I'm going to say my height is going to be about 50 millimeters for the height. And we'll add a lid onto this. Now I've got this height, I'm going to select the inside and create something called a thickness. So this icon here, make a thick solid. Now what this means, it just walls out the object. It's also available on part design. It's a subtractive feature, so it takes material away from the object, but it's not on any of the create a subtractive features here. It's actually on apply dress up feature, and we've got fillet, chamfer, draft and thickness. I know some of these take material away from the object, they're actually under the dress up. So we create a thickness that removes material from the inside relating to the sides of the object and makes these walls thick. I'm going to send the thickness inwards, so make thickness inwards, and what you'll see is that we'll keep our normal dimensions and the thickness now travels inwards. We're creating these walls from outside in. Now I'm going to set a thickness of 4mm, so we have 4mm wall running all the way around here. Hit OK, and that's basically the bottom of our box done. We need to place the hinges along this side. Now to do that, we're going to come around to the left and bring this down so the face points towards us. I'm going to click on that face. That means that I'll be creating a sketch on this face. So when I hit this sketch, it will come up with the sketch. And if I put a bit of angle on there, you can see it's placed on that face. I hit left, and I'm going to import some geometry here. So I'm going to import this top point. So using the toolbar, create an edge link to external geometry, also available on Sketch. Sketch geometries, external geometry there down the bottom. So this pulls in this geometry externally from the sketch, i.e. these lines here. You can see these lines highlighting, so even if I clicked on this line, what will happen is a point will be placed here. So if I click on this line, you can see that point is placed here because it's all to do with the way the camera is projected. So this will be projected towards you like this, and if we look down this side, the only thing that we can project forward is this point. Now what I want to do is really bring in this line as well. So this line here, and just click on that, and that's the edge brought in. So I can click on the left, and now I can start sketching in the hinge. You press mouse right button to bring back the pointer, or press escape and use the circles. I'm going to create two circles. They can be concentric to each other. So I'm using the auto constraints here. I've got the auto constraints on, which means when I hover over any of these lines, you'll see a constraint to the right of the pointer. So if we look at the right of the pointer at the moment, we've got the tool that we've selected, which is the circle. And then when we hover over any of the lines or the sketch geometries, you can see we start getting into constraints coming up. So we've got a point on line constraint there. If I hover over the center, I'll call coincident constraint. That means that circle I'll create will be coincident to that point there. So we've got concentric circles here. I'm going to select one of these circles and give it a diameter. I'll give one 10mm, and the inland one is going to be 5mm. Bit big for a hinge, but it will do for now. We can change this at a later date. I'll pull these out of the way so we can see what's going on. I'll pull the actual geometry out of the way. Let's pull that out of the way there. Now I want to make this level with this point, because if you think about the hinge, then it's got to run across here and allow both sides to connect. So this circle will be a pin that can run through here. So all we do is select the center point and this point and use the horizontal constraint against those. That sits there horizontally. I can move this up and down and it won't take effect left and right. It will. So now I'm going to start sketching in the hinge. We're going to use a line which connects this point to the bottom of this circle. Now if I touch it, you can see we've got a point on line constraint there. You can see the line then followed by a point on line constraint, or we can just touch it and have a tangent constraint there. If I do a point on line constraint, then we're going to get some interesting issues. Then this won't actually be right on here. And a matter of fact, this should be up around about here for this hinge. And we'll take this line and put a horizontal constraint on there. The other line that connects to this line here should be tangent with this, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. If I hover over here, point on line constraint, and we'll touch this line and point on line constraint. You can see how this touches this circle, but what I want to do is follow the curvature. So I'm going to hit escape to get the mouse pointer back. Select this line, select the circle, the outer circle, and use tangency. Now what's happened is we've still got the point on the line constraint, but we've got the tangent constraint working as well. We've got this avoid redundant auto constraints on here as well. So it's worth leaving that on as well, because that will remove the constraints that we don't need, and we'll get into something called an over constrained sketch, which can cause us a bit of issues. We have to go back and actually remove some of these constraints. We haven't closed this sketch as of yet, and also we need to do some trimming. So I'm going to use the line and connect this point to this point, and that's created a line between those. So what we've got is part of our sketch for the hinge sitting on this surface, but on the very edge. So when we pad it this way, what will happen is that because we're still connected to this face, we'll actually just create more material here for the actual hinge, and the hinge will just pad up along this surface. We need to trim this because at the moment this is an invalid sketch because we've got lines inside here. So this will be a void and this will be material. So we need to use the trim tool, trim an edge with respect to pit position. And we'll come in and just trim this circle, and this will trim it between these 2 points. So now this is a valid sketch. It's not constrained out of yet, which we'll do now. And to constrain it, we need to set some length here. So I'm going to say about 3mm there. You can see that one's gone green, so it's constrained. This one's not constrained yet because this can be pulled down. You can see the actual hinge angle is changing. So we've got some choice of where we want to actually place this hinge angle. I can do a number of things here. I can set a length in here. I can set an angle if I so desire. I'm going to set a length. So I'm going to decide on the angle. The more angle we have, the stronger the hinge, because the more surface area there. So I'm going to go for something like that. It all depends on the application of what the box is going to be used. This height here, this length here, I'm going to give it a height. That'll fully constrain it. So I'm going to say 10mm there. So we've got the hinge all nicely done. Got the hole for the center and the hinge. We'll close that, and we can see that now. We want to pad this. Now, thinking of whereabouts this sketch lays. This sketch lays on the face. So when we pad it, it will come forward. So we need to reverse the pad. So click on the sketch, and this is where people think it's gone into error, because when we pad this, the whole thing disappears. And because it's padding it forward, it's causing an error. So if I OK this, you can see it's saying results has multiple solids. That's because if I cancel this and look at this sketch, it sits on the front of that face. If I pad it forward, it will create another part of this body. So it's creating a secondary part that's actually disconnected. When we send it backwards, it's touching this surface here. So it becomes part of the body. So select the sketch, click the pad, hit reverse. You can see it's come back, and we've got our pad there. So you can see how that pad is taken and how it runs along that seam there. 10mm is fine for this. You can go for that. We can adjust this later, and we will do. Hit OK. So we've got our first hinge. We're going to use a linear pattern to place a number of hinges along here. So depending on how many hinges you want, it all depends on the length of here. So I'm going to go for 3 along here, which I may change afterwards. I may actually go for 4. So click on the pad, come up to the linear pattern. Now this is an additive feature, but if we go to the part design, apply a pattern, it'll be in here, linear pattern. It's actually created a pattern, but it's placed it in red over here. So it's placing a linear pattern along here, which results in a failed transformation. If we look at the top, there we go, transformation failed. See the occurrences down here. So we've got 2 occurrences, the pad and the linear pattern and the length. What we need is set the direction. Now this is where this edge comes in handy, because it runs this way and we're connected to the edge. The linear pattern will actually run along this edge. So direction, drop this down to select reference. Now we need to select something. So we'll select this edge. Click on it. So we've got pad 001, edge 3. Look where it's been placed. It's still in transformation failed because it's actually outside of this box. But if you think about what we've got a 10mm hinge, we've got 100mm length. So there's 90mm from this point to this point. So we've got a length of 100 here, so we just take 10 off this, set to 90. And our hinge comes back and we've got transformation successful. And we can set the occurrences here. So 3, these will be placed correctly along here now. So if I go for 4, and we can see them all along there. We have to be wary of the spacing between here. So this spacing in here will be the space of the hinge on the other side. So when we create our lid, it goes around here, then our hinges have to be sitting here. This is where the multi-body modeling comes in, and the shape binders, which we're going to go into in a moment. So basically we've created the bottom box, the bottom part of the box. We can now deal with any chamfering or filleting that we so desire to make this look a bit more pretty, but I'm going to leave it at that and move on to the lid. Hit OK, and before I go anywhere else, we're going to save it. We're going to do a bit of cleaning up here. So this body, I'm going to rename that, and this will be the bottom body. So the bottom body sits there. Hit enter. So I've renamed that, so we've got an idea of what these are. We're going to be using the sketch in here. So this sketch, if I press the spacebar on that, that brings it into existence. We can see the sketch is there. We're going to be using this, so I'm going to rename this to Hinge sketch. So we've got a hinge sketch there. I'm going to click on the sketch, and also in the view, I'm just going to bring up the line width. So we're looking down here, line width. At the moment it's 2. Just going to bring that up a couple, so to 4. That makes that line of that sketch just a little bit thicker, so we can see that there. Now the reasons why I'm doing this is we're going to be using this in a sub shape binder. We're actually going to be using 2 sub shape binders. So we need a separate body for our lid, because we're not going to be doing this symmetrical. We're going to add, say, a curved lid on top of here. So to do that, I'm going to create a new body. So I've got nothing selected. Our bottom body is current active body. You can see that's in bold. So I've collapsed the bottom body, and we're going to create a new body in here. I'm going to rename this to lid body. You can see it's gone bold, so this is the active body. So anything we do now is connected to this lid body. Notice I've created a body, but I haven't created a sketch. And that's because we can start importing some of the geometry from this box. If I create a sketch in here, and I'm going to import this geometry. Now this will fail, but I just want to show you what actually happens. So we're looking along the YZ plane. So this one here. So I'm going to place a sketch along here. If I hit OK, that's cross-sectioned through there, and we can use the section view to see that there. If I start trying to import some of this geometry, say the back edge, you can see down the bottom the object belongs to another body, can't link. So you can't actually link geometries from one body to another. This is where the subshape binder comes in handy. So just can click on that sketch and hit delete. Now if we come in and have a look at this, I want to pull in this edge here. So this one here. I can pull in this face if I so desire with a subshape binder, but really I just need to select this edge. Let me show you when you pull in this face what actually happens, because this is much easier for the demonstration. So you can see when I hit this icon here, the create subshape binder or sub object binder, we get this binder that comes into the lid body, and we get this orange lip that goes around here. Now if I click on the bottom body and press the space bar, you can see what's happened. It's actually lifted that face as basically a datum object. The subshape binder is also available on partdesign, create a subshape binder. Because we got the active body, the lid body here, anything that we reference in this bottom body will get placed directly into this lid body. So I can come in here and reference something else, say this edge here, and press the subshape binder and it gets placed within here. Like so, we can use that in our sketches. Just going to delete that last one and just go back to this one. I'm going to hide the bottom body again, pressing the space bar on it. And we can see that lid body is still active because it's bold. So what can we do with this? Well, let's come around to the left hand side. We can't really see that. Oh, there it is down the bottom there. So we go to the left hand side, we've got this length here. If we're having trouble with seeing this, we can come into the line width and bring up the line width again here in the view. And also we've got some transparency here, so we can zero that transparency so it's totally zero there, and that makes it much easier to see. So let's create a sketch in this body. So I'm going to select the body, create a sketch. We're looking along the left hand side, so YZ plane again, this one here, and hit OK. We'll flip round to the right, but that's fine because we're actually sketching in the middle of this body, which is absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine there. You can see how off-center this is to the origin. That's good. We don't need to move that. We can move this if we so desire, but I'm going to go with this. Now, if I use the create an edge link to external geometry, I can actually pull this in, like so, and that pulls in this, so we can actually reference that. We can see it's pulled in there. One thing to be wary of if you're using this on sketches, then you must hide the sketch of its parent. So you must hide the sketch in the original body where this has come from. We'll get to that in a moment when we do the hinge, because we can get ourselves into a bit of an issue because it starts trying to reference the external geometry that sketch is created from if it's still visible. And it can be a bit of a mind bender of reasons why did it work here but it doesn't work now with my sketch. And I've been down that road and I spent a few minutes wasting time in there and realizing what I've done. So I'm going to show you that as well. So we've pulled in this edge, click on the right, hit escape to get the mouse pointer back, or the right mouse button, and we're just going to create a curve over the top of here. So this is going to be the lid. So I'm going to drop this arch down to endpoint or endpoint, select the 2 points, and we'll bring this up. We can touch this to make it tangent to here if we so desire. So do that, and that's tangent to there. If we don't like it tangent to there, then we can click on this and just delete that icon there. Just place a line along here as well, because at the moment we've got open sketch. Just got an arc there. So we can click on this point, got the auto constraints on, and click on our last point, auto constraint there. So we got our line going in there. To click on right because it's much easier to do our sketching upon. I'm just going to delete this tangent constraint because I want to change the arc a bit. You can see that our line going along here is fully constrained because that's gone green, light green, and we're going to use this arc here and add a diameter or a radius along here. And we'll set that to 25. So now we've got our arc. These dimensions that I'm putting in, it's up to you what dimensions you want. We're just doing this for demonstration. So we've got our arc here. Let's hit close. Now it's important to notice where this is sitting. So this is centered along this shape binder. And we'll look at the bottom box, bring that back, and we can see how that's sitting there. Let's just hide that now. And also hide the sketch. So click on the bottom box, press the space bar. There we go, that's hidden. Click on the sketch and use the pad. Now this is where I said it was important to notice where this is, because this is going through this here. We know this is 100 millimeters long, and this will go off into the distance 100 millimeters, but we actually want this centered So we look at down here, we've got the symmetrical to plane. If we click that, that will center it symmetrical to that plane there. So where that sketch plane was sitting. So we created the top linked to the shape binder. Hit OK. What that means is that we got a shape binder there. We can press the spacebar on that shape binder. We don't need it anymore. And we look at our bottom box, and that's come down to the linear pattern, the last action. So you can see the last action, got a little green tip there. Press the spacebar on that, and we can see how that sits on top of there. So this is where the shape binder comes in handy, because we're referencing objects from the previous body, our parent body, and we're able to marry them up or offer them up to that body to see how they fit. Click on the bottom body, press the spacebar. We're going to add a thickness to here to make these walls thick. We're going to use the thickness again. So that's create a thickness in there, and the last one was 4mm, and make sure it goes inwards as well. Hit OK. So now we've got the lid. We need some hinges. Let's look at the bottom body and how that sits. So there's no point in trying to recreate these hinges. What we need to do is edit them, but pull them into our lid. So again, we use the shape binder, but this time we're going to use the hinge sketch, and this is the reason why I named it, and also changed the line width so we can actually see it in there. If your hinge sketch at the moment is not visible, then just come down to your tree view, follow it down. We've got the linear pattern, which was these going along here, and last action was created from the pad. Press the spacebar on the linear pattern, we can get the pad back so we can see our hinge there. Inside there we have our hinge sketch. So press the spacebar. This is what the pad was created from. So we went reverse with this pad to create that hinge sketch. So we've got a hinge sketch now. What we need to do is create a shape binder to this. We could click the face and create a shape binder to that face. That's valid. But I'm just going to use the sketch. So we did face last time. This time we're using the sketch. It's up to you which one you want to use. Use the green blob thing here. Create a shape binder. Part design. Create a shape binder. That will place the shape binder in the active body. So our active body is this lid, and the binder is sitting in here. Now this is where we need to hide this bottom. Press the spacebar. You can see we've still got the sketch available, so we need to hide the sketch as well. Now let me show you what happens if we don't hide that sketch, and this can cause some people some problems until they realize what's actually happened. So I'm going to create a sketch on this face, the face of this lid. And you can see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create some hinges on this side. So again, we click the face. If you click it again, we're going to select the whole body. Make sure to just click the face. And we'll create a sketch on that face. That will attach a sketch to this face. And we need to pull in this geometry. Now, it's obvious that we've got the sketch available and still visible, because we changed the width of this line. If this wasn't changed, then this will actually sit behind this shape binder. So we'll come into the model and have a look at the hinge sketch, and we'll go down to line width and just set it back to normal. It looks like this is just the shape binder, part of the shape binder, but it's not. We've still got the hinge sketch available. It's still visible there. I know the bottom box, the linear pattern, is invisible. So what happens when we try to import that geometry? Well, we've come over, you can see the object belongs to another body, it can't link. So at this point, if you haven't realized that the sketch is still visible, you'll be asking yourself, well, how comes I was able to pull in the last shape binder, but I can't pull in this shape binder? That's because it's taking the topmost element. So I'm trying to pull in the actual sketch. Click on that sketch. Well, first of all, I need to bring back the mouse pointer, so hit the right mouse button or hit escape. Then we can click on the sketch, press the space bar, and you can see the subtle difference now with the shape binder. We haven't got the white line that goes around the outside because now that hinge is hidden, and that hinge sketch would be sitting on top of the shape binder. Come down now, and we've got that binder there. We'll use to create an edge link to external geometry, and if we roll over this, we can see down the bottom that we haven't got any problems coming up. We're still saying faces, and if I click that external geometry, that circle comes in. So that's a little tip. If you get yourself into that predicament and you're wondering why the shape binder is not coming in, then that's the problem. The shape binder is actually sitting behind the original sketch. So I've brought in this circle, and I'm going to bring in the inner circle as well. The reason why I'm doing this is because this will be the same for the other hinge that sits on here. It also means that if I change the sketch, the dimensions of these holes, it will flow through the shape binder and into the lid hinge and change as well. So we've got some dynamic referencing going on here between the two. So we can change this hole to what we see fit, or even the outside. So now we've got these two circles in. I'm going to hit the right mouse button to bring back the mouse pointer, use the circle, and we'll just place a circle that's coincident to that point, but I'm not going to touch these just yet to make a constraint against it. I'm just going to put them inside and coincident to that point, and just bring it outside of here so they're not touching. Because what I want to do is use this circle and this circle here, click both of those using the quality constraint. So that brings through the radius from our sketch behind. So our shape binder that's connected to our sketch, that brings in the radius. We'll do the same from the inner circle as well. Click both of those using the quality. You can see they're fully constrained now. Now we need to bring in this edge. So we've brought in the edges of the shape binder that we're going to use. Now we use create an edge link to external geometry and bring in this edge. So we brought in that edge, and we've got all the edges that we need to create our hinge. And basically this is the same process. We create a line, we zoom in and click on left and create a line that's connected to this circle, come up and touch this circle, so point on line constraint there, and we do coincident constraint there and a coincident constraint to that one. Again, we want to make this line and this circle smooth, so we get a smooth transition. This is okay, we can go for this, but I'm going for a smooth transition with the tangency across those. So we have a nice tangency, so you can see how that moves and keeps that nice transition between those two. It's up to you. Next one is a curve, so this point and this point, we're going to match this curve here. So use the curve, coincident to the top, coincident constraint to the bottom, and we get this arc. If you touch this arc, it may end up snapping down to the bottom, so we'll just leave that arc open. Hit escape, select the arc, select this line, and using the quality there, that means that matches this line going along here, and we can set this to where we want. That will follow that line like so. So when we pad, remember padding in reverse, this will be all valid. Now, depending on how high we want this, we need to constrain this down to make it fully constrained if we so desire. Number of ways of doing that: we can take this point and put a height in there, or we could do a length along here using the length constraint, fix the length. I'm just going to use a height in there. We can even do an angle if we so desire. Just going to place a height in there of 8mm. And we need to remove some material because at the moment we haven't got a valid sketch because we've got this line here. So we need to remove that with the trim and just remove that line. So we've got our hinge sketch there using this shape binder. Press the mouse right button to get the pointer back. Come up to the tasks, hit close. Now I've got that there. We're going to pad this way. So find the sketch, sketch 03, and we'll pad that. It will disappear, so we need to go reverse because we're going this way, remember. If we pad this way, it'll come out in front of us because our sketch is sitting along here. 10mm is fine. These are big chunky hinges. Easier for demonstration on big chunky hinges because we can see the rest of the body here. This is the only reason why I'm doing this, making it this size, so we can see what's happening. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to click on the binder, this binder here, and press the space bar. So we've got our first hinge for the top. You'll notice something though when we bring back our body, bottom body, press the space bar. Make sure that's visible, which it is, and make sure our last action is visible. Then this is sitting actually on top of this hinge, and we need it to be in here. So we can solve that by coming down to the pad that we just done. Come into the pad, and we need to offset the sketch. So this was the hinge sketch that we created, the new hinge sketch for this lid body. I'll rename that to lid hinge sketch. So what I'm going to do, just bring up the line width so we can see whereabouts it is there. So it's sitting there. So we need to move this 10mm this way, which is quite easy to do. It's got the hinge sketch selected. Let's click on the bottom, just press the space bar so it's a lot easier to see what's happening. Got the hinge sketch selected there. Come down to the data. Now, because this is attached to this face, we'll see attachment come up first. If this wasn't attached, we'll see the placement come up first. So come down to the attachment, come down to the position, and then we get the position here. Word of warning, this will differ to our placement that's sitting here. So you can see Z is going up, X is going left. If I double click on here, note the colors of the sketch, these lines. This vertical line here is green, and the vertical line on here is green, but Y is pointing this way. This is the local corner system of the sketch. So Z, we look at this, if red is X, Y is green, then this is X, this is Y, so Z will be running along this way. So we have to move this along the local Z axis of the sketch. Hit close, click on the sketch, come down to the attachment, come down to the position, come down to the Z, and we'll start moving this. And you can see if we press up and down arrow, then that's moving along that Z. So it's minus 10mm. That places that there to allow that to sit there. Click off, that will move 10mm. So now when I bring back the bottom body and the linear pattern, press the spacebar, you can see how that sits there. We can also get an idea of the length that we need now to fill in this gap. We're not going to do that just yet. What we're going to do is fill in these spaces with these hinges. So we've got 1, 2, 3 hinges to place along here. So come down to the lid body, click on the pad. Let's just hide that sketch from inside there. Just collapse that. Click on the pad, and we need a linear pattern. Create a linear pattern. Again, we're going to need an edge. So we're going to use this edge here. So I need to just hide this body. Otherwise, I can't select that edge in there. Click on the body, click the spacebar, that's gone. So now we can come down again. This is selecting the length. We're going to actually change the length in here. We're going to change the occurrences. We need the direction. Select a reference. So this will then place it along here, this edge. So we select this edge. That's going along there. Still red because, well, it's 100mm from this point. So before we actually reduce this by 10mm, but we've got to take into account of the offset that we've actually placed in here. So 80mm, we'll place it along there. We have a hinge on the bottom, so we can see that by coming up to model, coming up to the bottom body, pressing the space bar on the bottom body to show it, which is shown. You can see it is visible, but our linear pattern isn't. So select the linear pattern, press the space bar. So we've got the hinge on this side, so we've got to move this hinge up. Come back to our tasks. Now we can see the bottom body. We can use that for reference, as in visual reference. So we take another 10 off, and that will place it by the side of that hinge there. We need another occurrence, so we've got two occurrences. We need one that goes in here, so set the occurrences to 3. That places that in there. So we've got those like so. So these two marry up nicely, but we need to create a bit more length with these hinges. We can do that by altering the pad of the lid of these hinges. So hit OK. Come down to the lid. There's a linear pattern here. We want the pad, which is the pad of that hinge. We can see the sketch is still available, this one here, but we need to alter the pad length. So this pad at the moment is 10 millimeters. If I click on the length and increase that, watch what happens. Pressing up, Control R, and we can see how that's increasing. And that fills the space. So we have to juggle the length with the length of the actual linear pattern. So let's bring these up to this point. So 20 mil there. And then what we need to do is go into the linear pattern, and we can change the length. And if I bring this down, you can see those moving back. So I'll bring it down to 50, so minus 10 off that. You can see how far that comes back. So we can just move these slightly into place by using this length here, just increasing that length, and get these into position. This may be a bit too big. You can see we've married up these. These may be a bit too big and they bind on here. So we can adjust the sizes of these hinges to see how we fit by juggling the length with the actual pad. So this pad here, and change the length of this, bring this down, pressing Control R, and we can see we can get a bit of spacing along here. And we can do the same with the bottom as well. So we've got the top and bottom. We need to place a pin through here. So we're going to create that as a new body as well. And again, I'm going to pull in some geometry from here. So I'm going to use a subshape binder. I'm going to go for this circle in here. So we're going to use an edge as a subshape binder in there. So pull in that edge this time. Let's hide this bottom body, hide the top. We know this is going to be about 100 millimeters long. So we could even just click on the binder and use a pad in there. So I've padded the binder rather than creating a sketch in here. Use 100 millimeters long there. It'll go reverse, hit OK. And now when we bring back the lid body, but if we come in, we can see it's hidden. So it'd be the last action. Let's bring back the last action there. See how that's gone through there. And the linear pattern there. This is going to be a very tight fit. So we may need to change our approach here. Rather than using a pad, let's delete that pad and create a sketch in this body. YZ plane. Okay. We've got the shape there. We're not going to be able to bring in any of this geometry. Let's see if we can, because we've got everything visible. You may have to be able to actually catch that shape binder. No, we can't catch that shape binder, so what I'm going to do is just hit close. I could select the center of that with external geometry. That will probably bring it in, and just hide the linear pattern on these two. Go back to our body. We've got a sketch, double click it, got this here, and we'll bring in geometry. Pull that geometry in, circle into the center, bring it out. We don't want it touching that. We'll make this quite loose so we can actually open the box. So the diameter of this can be just below here. We can put an equation in here so we can reference that external geometry. I'm just going to use it by eye at the moment. If we put an equation in here, then all the rest of the geometry, if we increase or decrease those holes, this will change as well. So set the diameter, 2.5. Just beyond that point, hit close. And if we pad this now, 100 millimeters. It's going to have to be symmetrical to plane again. There we go. Okay, that. Now we've got the pin there. It's a linear pattern. We can see that pin running through there. We've got to need a stopper on each of the sides as well. So let's hide that linear pattern where we just brought back, that one there, linear pattern. Hide the binder. We've got this pad now. We can select that face, create a sketch upon that face, and just add a circle in there. Let's bring in some geometry. Add the circle, and we're just building the pins really. Like so. Hit close. Constrain it if we want. I'm just going to breeze through this one. Click the sketch, pad, 2 mil. There we go. And we can flip this around onto this one and do the same. Sketch on there. Got this one here, so we can pull in that edge there. That means that we can place a circle connected to that point and bring it out. And I'm not going to touch it to make it tangent. I'm just going to use that line, that circle and that circle, and make those equal. So if one changes, the other one will as well. So hit close and pad that by 2 mil. Obviously we need to make some kind of connector in here. If we're 3D printing this, then we need to have these individual parts separate. So this will have to be separated out here. I've just added it onto the end just to show how that will be connected out there. So we could create some kind of attachment in here, so like a threaded base and this on top of here, but that will make the tutorial a bit too long, so we're just going to use that for the time being. I will be going to the threads on objects and female male threads, or outer and inner threads, in another video. So we've got this here. We've now got our pin, and we can see how the linear pattern, if we bring that back, and also this linear pattern as well, how they all connect up onto that pin. And now we've got our box ready to do with whatever we want with it. 3D print it, send it to someone. We can finish this by adding chamfering or filleting on these, but this is your basic box build with linear patterns, substrate binders, and using the part design throughout. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, hope you've learned something from that. Hope you're enjoying the channel, and I hope to see you again soon. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.